pleasure to speak in these debates, but it's pretty grim, really, that we have to keep on having these debates. And the bad news is that the situation continues to get worse and not better, which is why we who have the immense privilege of being able to speak out in the freedom that we enjoy in this country, it's so important that we do speak up for others around the world who do not enjoy the freedoms which we do. Now, I speak as a Christian myself, but I'm here this afternoon to stick up for the Uyghurs in China and all people of Muslim faith who are suffering persecution. We've had talk from my honourable friend for Congleton in her excellent speech on the persecution suffered by Dalits, and that is absolutely unacceptable. And we've heard of Hindus not being well treated in terms of distribution and aid and so on in Pakistan. And this debate is about freedom of religion or belief, and that, of course, includes the belief not to believe in God. And a very good Christian friend of mine, Ben Rogers, went to visit an atheist in prison in Indonesia a few years ago, a Christian going to the support of an atheist whose rights not to believe in God were being taken away. And they had a very interesting conversation about Mark's Gospel, I seem to remember. I don't know whether the atheist ever came to faith or not. I don't quite caught up with the end of the story. But I think it just does make the point that whether you are of faith or any faith or have no faith, this debate is for you. And those rights are universal and they should be applicable all the way around the world. Having said that, I do note that, as indeed the former envoy on this issue said only in the chamber this morning, that Christians are the most persecuted group in the world, and that's something we just need to say and speak as the facts dictate. And what I think sometimes we don't realise in the more privileged West is that most Christians in the world are quite poor and disadvantaged. They are not wealthy, privileged people. They're often on the margins. They're often not in the mainstream, and it's more easy to take advantage of them. And although I think the decision on aid yesterday was unfortunately a regrettable one, noting our manifesto, I am grateful that combating religious persecution, combating persecution against those on the grounds of freedom of religion or belief does remain a Foreign Office priority, and that is very important indeed. And I think just to get the context of this debate, because we will all mention some particular countries, Mr. Rosendahl, and that's absolutely right. I'm just going to read out the top 20 countries on the Open Doors 2020 World Watch List, because I think they need to be named so people are aware. Number one, no surprise, it's been there for a long time, is North Korea. But following that, Afghanistan, a country where there's been significant UK involvement for many years. Somalia, Libya, Pakistan, I think the major recipient of UK aid spending, and a Commonwealth country to boot. Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, Iran, India at number 10. A proud member of the British Commonwealth, a great friend to this country, a huge friend of India. But sometimes friends have those conversations that they need to have that your friend doesn't always want you to have, and I think that is certainly the case with India as a fellow Commonwealth member. Then number 11, we go on to Syria, Nigeria, another Commonwealth country, Saudi Arabia, Maldives, Iraq, Egypt, Algeria, Uzbekistan, Myanmar, and Laos. They are the top 20. I think they just give an idea of the geographical spread of this issue, Mr. Rosendahl. And as I say, things are getting worse. There are 260 million Christians living in World Watch List top 50 countries. That's an increase from 2019 when it was 245 million. There are some countries like Sri Lanka where there used to be a degree of stability where increasing destabilising violence has led to much greater difficulties for Christians in that country. In Burkina Faso, we've seen a relentless rise in violence throughout 2019 as Islamic militancy has taken hold within that country. The situation in China continues to get worse. It's had a huge rise up the World Watch List to 2023. Over 5,500 churches have been destroyed, closed down, or confiscated during the reporting period. In 2018, China was just ranked at 43. That is a huge increase. Many of us have been upset not to be able to get into our own churches earlier this year and over the last month or so. But that is, what we have had to suffer, in inverted commas, in comparison to having 5,500 churches destroyed, closed down, or confiscated, is simply of a different order. Yes, of course I will.
He's making an excellent speech, and he's highlighting the fact that churches have been closed, but even where churches are open now, government laws restrict those who can attend them. For example, it is now illegal to take a child under 18 into a church, and there are certain occupations, such as the military, where they cannot attend. The restrictions in just the last few years in China have been incredible, and I do thank him for highlighting this once again in this place.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for that extra information, which he's very usefully put on the record, and I do note that many of the leading campaigners in Hong Kong, that many of us in this House, cross-party, are very much supporting at the moment, are also inspired by their Christian faith to speak out against what is happening in Hong Kong at the moment. In India, there have been, 2019, there were 1,445 physical attacks and death threats against Christians. In Nigeria, it's estimated, again, in the 2020 reporting period, that there were 1,350 Christians killed for their faith, and we know that abductions continue, often of children and young people. I was very privileged to have Leah Sharibu's mother in my office a few months ago, and just looking at the pain in her eyes that her daughter has still not been returned to her, encourages me to keep on speaking out on this issue. And I hope this debate, the last thing I will say, Mr. Rossendale, is that I do hope this debate actually gets some publicity today. I'm generally a great fan of the BBC, but I can't help noticing that debates on this issue don't always feature quite as prominently as I should on BBC outlets, and I hope that is something that will change, and this important debate will certainly get some coverage.